You are now listening to When Brilliance Meets Power, a full billionaire romance audiobook.
Part 1, The First Strike. You can learn a lot about a man by the way he waits for you. Gabriel Royce didn't stand when I entered the boardroom. He didn't smile, didn't offer a handshake, just sat there, elbows on the arms of his obscenely expensive chair, watching me like I was a particularly complicated chess problem. That was fine. I hadn't come here to be welcomed. I'd come to fix him. The room smelled like power and panic, leather chairs, citrus disinfectant, and the faint acrid scent of someone's failed media training. I dropped my leather folio on the table without sitting down. "You don't need a spin doctor," I said. "You need a leash." He tilted his head, one eyebrow raised, slightly amused. "And you need to learn when not to bare your teeth." I met his eyes. Cold, sharp, blue-gray, like winter light on polished steel. "If you're uncomfortable with directness, I suggest you fire me now, before I start costing you less." He leaned back slowly. No smirk, no smugness, just calculation. The room had been full of underlings when I walked in, but now with one dismissive flick of his fingers, he cleared them out. Not a word spoken, just command, embodied. Doors closed. Silence followed. Now it was just me and the man whose name had been trending for 3 days straight. Political speculation, international contracts, and one very inconvenient offshore shell company he hadn't denied owning. "What do you know about me, Miss Malik?" he asked. I stepped closer, heels clicking softly on the slate floor. Gabriel Royce, born to a legacy family that lost its legacy, served in military intelligence, decorated, honorable discharge, built your first firm by 27. Since then, 2 major infrastructure investment funds, both praised and questioned, a series of fast, scalable tech deployments in conflict zones, and a growing suspicion that you're testing the waters for public office. He looked pleased, so I kept going. "You're adored by power brokers, hated by transparency watchdogs, respected by your enemies, and you know how to weaponize silence better than most people know how to use words." Something shifted in his posture, just a little. I'd hit a nerve, or at least brushed one. "And what does your firm know?" he asked. "That I've been brought in to clean your public image, make you palatable, electable, and ideally, human." "Are you in the habit of calling your clients inhuman?" "Only when it helps them win." I pulled an envelope from my folio and slid it across the table. "Here are my terms. Full control over your media strategy. 60 days. You follow my script, my timing, my optics, or I walk." He picked up the envelope, opened it, and scanned the document. Then he looked up at me with something unsettling in his expression, something that could have been interest, or contempt, or maybe both. "You're asking me to put my future in your hands." "No," I said. "I'm asking you not to burn it down yourself." Later that day, private hotel suite, Mayfair. It was raining, the kind of clean, glassy drizzle that made London feel cinematic and distant. I stood by the hotel window, phone in hand, pretending not to care whether he'd reply. Then my phone buzzed. "You've got your leash. Use it wisely." A second text followed before I could roll my eyes. "Fundraiser. Saturday night. You're on my arm. Try not to bite anyone." I didn't hesitate. "Only if they bark first. The optics game." The Argent Trust fundraiser was exactly the kind of event I hated. Overfunded, overperfumed, and overpopulated with people who made decisions for the rest of the world while drinking 1,000-pound champagne. I walked in alone. Not because we weren't coordinating, because Gabriel Royce didn't wait outside like a gentleman. He waited inside like a lion. He was standing just inside the entry, cutting a sharp line in a tailored tux, eyes scanning the room as if he was already calculating the evening's damage. He turned when I approached and smiled, but it wasn't warm. "You clean up well." I looked him up and down. He was as put together as always. Understated, powerful, precise. "You don't look like a scandal tonight. That's progress." He offered his arm. I took it. For optics. Cameras flashed. Journalists whispered. I could already see the headlines. "Royce seen with unknown power broker ahead of key public address." He leaned in just slightly as we moved through the foyer. Smile. "I'm not your date." "No. You're the woman who's going to make them wonder if I've finally grown up." I kept my smile polite and lethal, then behaved like it. Inside, the room was a landmine. Gabriel worked it like a pro. He didn't make mistakes, but he did make enemies. One of them found us near the bar. Gabriel, you're looking media ready. Marcus Trenley, smarmy, silver-tongued, and always circling blood. Gabriel responded with the kind of calm that made me tense. Marcus, still pretending to care about journalism? Before the exchange could explode, I inserted myself. Mr. Trenley, I said sweetly, we're due at the stage, shall we? He looked me over, smiled like he was about to make a terrible joke. And you are? His restraint, stage side. I handed Gabriel the note card with my talking points. He scanned it once and said, I don't do scripts. I leaned in, close enough that only he could hear me. You do now. If you want these people to invest, lose the ego. Keep the vision. He stared at me for a beat too long. You enjoy giving orders. I enjoy saving powerful men from themselves. And if I don't listen? I smiled. Then I walk. And when they ask why your PR woman ghosted you mid-contract, you'll get to explain it on record. He didn't flinch, just walked onto the stage. And then he spoke and used everything I gave him without reading a single word of the card. He'd memorized it. He echoed my tone, my turns of phrase. He quoted me and made it sound like him. It worked. By the end of the speech, I could feel the shift in the room. They didn't trust him yet, but they were curious, respectful. Curiosity is the first crack in resistance. Balcony? After the applause. He didn't look at me right away, just leaned on the railing, city lights bouncing off his cufflinks. That go how you planned? I joined him. They'll talk about you differently tomorrow. Less suspicion, more interest. He looked at me, unreadable again. And you? I'm still deciding if you're teachable or just extremely good at pretending. His expression twitched. The closest I'd seen him come to amused. You surprised me tonight. That makes two of us. A beat of silence passed. Then he said, they think I'm running for office? I might be, but that's not what this was about. I turned toward him. Then what is this about? He didn't answer right away. Then, legacy. My father wrecked his name before he died. I'd rather leave something intact. For a second, my chest tightened, because I understood that all too well. Then stop playing arsonist with your reputation, I said, and maybe let someone help. His eyes didn't leave mine. Help always has a price. So does loneliness. He looked down, and I walked back into the ballroom before he could say anything else. Part 3, the leak. There are two kinds of silence in this world, the kind that soothes and the kind that waits to explode. I knew which one was settling around me the moment I walked into the Royce office the following Tuesday. No one met my eyes. Phones buzzed quietly. Doors were slightly ajar, but conversations stopped the second I passed. I didn't need a headline to tell me something had gone wrong, but I got one anyway. My phone buzzed. I checked the notification. Exclusive, Gabriel Royce's PR strategist tied to classified Kosovo op was Fixer, MI6 asset, and there it was. The life I'd left behind dragged into the light. The leak was clean, too clean. They had a photo, grainy but real, of me during a field operation I hadn't spoken about in 5 years. They quoted unnamed government officials, speculation disguised as fact. It was designed not to confirm, but to cast doubt. And it was working. I was already halfway to the elevator when I saw his office door open. He was inside, alone, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows like he always did when he was pretending not to be furious. I stepped in without knocking. Let me guess, I said, my voice calm even as my spine burned. You've already had 3 calls about whether I'm a spy or a security risk. He turned slowly. His eyes were unreadable. 5. And one of them was from someone who doesn't call me unless the sky is on fire. I nodded. Then we're on schedule. He walked toward the table, laid out a folder. I knew what was inside before he opened it. Copies of the leak, printouts of the article, metadata. Someone had done more than a hack. They'd reconstructed my entire professional shadow file. This was personal, I said quietly. You think it's Trenley? I shook my head. Too precise. He's messy. This was designed to discredit you, not just me. He studied me. Then who? I hesitated. There was a name, a face. But saying it would pull Gabriel into a mess deeper than bad press. It would make him a target. I gave him half the truth. Someone I burned. Years ago. They have reach, but no proof. That's why it's all implication. He stared at me for a long moment, and then said the one thing I didn't expect. Why didn't you tell me? I blinked. Because it wasn't relevant. because I don't explain myself to clients, and because I didn't think you gave a damn beyond how it affected your numbers. His jaw tensed, just slightly. You're wrong. That stopped me. He walked past me, close enough to brush my shoulder, and stood by the door. I brought you in because you're smart, unshakable, and good. This isn't just about optics anymore. Someone is trying to take us both down. You mean you. No, he said, eyes sharp. Us. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, just such. I'd faced worse than rumors, worse than headlines. But because Gabriel Royce had looked at me like he saw something I didn't want him to see. And I wasn't sure what scared me more, being exposed by the press or being seen by him. 3 days later, gala at the Tate Modern. We weren't supposed to go. He told me to lay low, but the media frenzy was growing, and I knew that silence would be spun as guilt. So I told him we were going. He didn't argue. But when I showed up outside his car, he looked at me like I was holding a gun. You're sure about this? We control the narrative, I said, or it controls us. He nodded once, and that was it. We arrived together, same car, same pace, same storm behind our eyes. Inside the museum, eyes turned like clockwork. Journalists whispered, allies hovered, enemies smiled too broadly. I wore a blood-red gown. I wanted them to see me. No shadows tonight. He wore black again? Just he always did when he wanted to disappear into power. We split up for 10 minutes to work the room, but I knew the moment it would happen. A flash of silver hair, a too smooth voice, a champagne glass raised too precisely. Hugo Verin, the man I had burned, and the one who'd burned me back. He walked toward me like a wolf in velvet. Miss Malik, what a dramatic week you've had. I smiled with all my teeth. I try to keep things interesting. I'm sure MI6 trained you well. Not as well as they taught me to spot cowardice in a suit. His smile faltered, just enough to feel like a win. Tell me, what happens when the man you're protecting finds out who you really are? I didn't get to answer, because Gabriel appeared right behind me and said, calm and clear, he already has. The world stopped for just a beat. Hugo's expression tightened. How charming. Loyalty from someone with so little to lose. Just said, Gabriel stepped forward. Careful, Hugo. You're bleeding envy all over your shoes. I had to fight a smile. We left 20 minutes later. No more questions, no more whispers, just a story rewritten in real time, because he'd backed me in public, and it had cost him. Later, outside my flat, the rain was back. Of course it was. We sat in his car, engine quiet, headlights off. I didn't speak. Neither did he. Then, softly, he said, "You didn't deserve that. What they did, you should have told me." I turned to him. I'm not used to having someone to tell. His hand was on the gear shift. Still, tense. You do now. My throat tightened. Gabriel, you don't have to say anything. He didn't lean in. He didn't touch me. He just looked at me the way no one ever had, with respect and recognition. And then he said, almost too softly to hear, "You're not a liability, Sana. You're the reason I'm still standing." I got out of the car without replying, because if I'd stayed, I would have said something I couldn't take back. The next 3 days passed like smoke, visible, consuming, and impossible to hold on to. Gabriel Royce and I didn't speak. Not out of anger, out of something much harder to define. He defended me in front of Hugo Verin, not to be noble, not even to protect his own campaign. He'd done it because he saw me, and I didn't know what to do with that. I wasn't built for emotional openness. I was built for plans, strategy, contingencies, the clean architecture of things that couldn't bleed. But now the architecture was shifting, and he was the one moving the floor beneath me. Thursday, late afternoon. The message came from his assistant. Royce requests your presence at the Westmore construction site. 6 p.m. Cryptic. Which meant it mattered. I arrived just as the sun dipped behind the skyline. The site was mostly steel framing and concrete dust, a future skyscraper still in the skeleton phase. He stood at the edge of the rooftop platform, overlooking the city like it belonged to him. Wind tugged at his sleeves. No security, no media, just us. "You brought me to a building site?" I said, stepping up beside him. He didn't look at me at first, just nodded toward the skyline. "This view used to scare me." I frowned. "You? Scared?" "Not of falling," he said quietly, "of failing, of building something that didn't last." I waited. He finally looked at me. "You wanted to know why I hired you, why I listened." I assumed it was because I made your PR team look like toddlers with crayons. He smiled at that. A real one. Brief, but real. That too, but mostly because I knew you'd tell me the truth, even when it made me want to throw something through a window. High praise. You don't flinch, Sana. You don't chase power. You match it. And every time I think I've outplayed you, you show me I was playing the wrong game. My chest tightened. This man, who spoke in calculated silences, was peeling himself open. Not for optics, not for manipulation. For me. I said nothing, because I was afraid of what I'd say if I started. We sat on a steel beam, legs dangling over the edge, city glittering below like static. I'd never sat this close to danger and felt this safe. You said you're not used to having someone to tell, he said quietly. About your past. I nodded. In my world, secrets were currency. And trust got you killed. What about now? Now. I paused. Now I think, maybe I'm tired of surviving. Maybe I want something I don't have to defend. He didn't move, didn't interrupt, just listened. I hated how much that disarmed me. What happened in Kosovo, I continued, was sanctioned, buried, and necessary. But people died, people who shouldn't have. And I've spent every day since trying to do something cleaner, smarter. And what if the world doesn't let you be clean? Then I build anyway, even if it's on cracked ground. He turned to me. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Then let's build together. My heart stuttered. Gabriel, you don't owe me anything, he said, gaze steady. But I'm not here because you saved my reputation. Then why? Because somewhere between your first threat and your last warning, I started needing you. It wasn't a line. It wasn't rehearsed. It was quiet and terrifying and honest. I didn't speak. I leaned in. And this time, he did too. The kiss wasn't perfect. It wasn't soft or poetic or timed to a swelling string section. It was messy, tense, like pressure finally giving way. His hand cradled my jaw, gentle and steady. My fingers curled into his lapel, and for one long, impossible moment, we stopped being our reputations. We were just two people who'd been fighting the world for too long, finally letting someone in. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. This changes everything, I said. Good, he replied. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I woke up the next morning with the city in my throat. The skyline outside Gabriel's penthouse was silver with rain, the air heavy and soft, like the quiet before a vote or a goodbye. He wasn't in bed. He wasn't the type to linger. I found him in the kitchen, shirt sleeves rolled, coffee in hand, reading 3 newspapers at once like a man preparing for war. You don't sleep? I asked, pulling his sweater around my shoulders. He glanced at me. Not when I'm winning. And are you? He folded one of the papers and handed it to me. The front page was a headline I hadn't expected. Royce rejects alliance with Varon Pack, cites conflict of ethics. A bold move. Stupid. Brave. Public. I read the quote aloud. I will not align with people who discredit those working in good faith. My team, including Sana Malik, operates with integrity and purpose. Period. I looked up at him. You just torched a £100 million alliance. It wasn't worth it. To who? He met my gaze, steady. To me. An hour later, a message arrived in my inbox. Unsecured, from Charlotte Marin, Washington, D.C. Quiet offer, Sana. We heard about the leak. I'm sorry. If you want out, really out, we can give you a new slate. Lead strategist position. U.S. Intelligence Liaison Project. Full autonomy. Think about it. We'll hold the door open for 2 weeks. C. It was everything I'd ever worked for. Power. Clean structure. Freedom. No cameras. No men like Gabriel. No feelings I didn't know how to manage. And yet, I stared at the screen for 20 minutes and didn't reply. The next evening. Press conference at Royce HQ. The room was packed. Cameras, journalists, opponents. Gabriel was prepping for the biggest public Q&A of his career, his first real political address. Half the media was waiting to tear him down. The other half was just waiting to watch him bleed. I wasn't there. Not officially. I watched from the mezzanine, behind tinted glass. He walked to the podium, dark suit pressed, face unreadable. He opened with a joke. Good tone. Human. Confident. Then a reporter stood and asked, "Are you confirming a run for parliament?" A pause. He looked directly into the crowd. "No," he said. "Not yet." "Then what are you doing?" Gabriel took a breath, the kind you only take when you're about to step into fire. "I'm building something," he said. "Something that doesn't require me to lie, posture, or use the people around me like shields. I'm not here to perform power. I'm here to change it. He glanced toward the mezzanine. I don't know if he could see me, but I felt it. And I'm doing that with people who challenge me, one in particular. I stood frozen as he said my name. Not the spin version, not the strategic consultant, me. Sana Malik is one of the most brilliant, uncompromising minds I've ever met, and I trust her, with my future, with my failures, and frankly, with my heart, whether or not she ever forgives me for saying that out loud. The room erupted, and I left. Not because I was running, because I had a choice to make. 1 week later, a park in Marylebone. I found him on a bench alone. No tie, no guards, just a book in his lap and his phone face down. He didn't look surprised to see me. I got your email, he said. I didn't send one. He turned to me. Then I don't know if I should be relieved or worried. I sat beside him, quiet for a moment. Then I said, I was offered a position in D.C., he nodded. Of course you were. It's clean, powerful, safe, and I turned it down. He turned toward me fully now, brows lifted, cautious. Why? I looked at him. Really looked, at the sharp edge of his jaw, the creases at the corners of his eyes, the tension he still carried like armor. Because I'm done surviving, I said. And for the first time in a long time, I want to build something I'm not afraid to lose. He swallowed. Once, then reached for my hand, tentative and quiet, like someone holding glass. With me? On one condition. Name it. We do it my way. Strategy or relationship? Yes, he laughed, and I smiled. Final scene, 6 months later. The world didn't stop spinning when we became a thing. The headlines kept coming, the enemies kept circling, but we stood side by side, publicly, privately, as partners. I still wrote speeches and shredded press releases. He still made billion-pound calls and skipped sleep to read intelligence briefings. But now, when I handed him a note card, he read it without argument. And when he looked at me in a room full of wolves, I knew exactly where I stood. Not behind him, not beneath him, beside him. Because power wasn't about domination. It was about trust. And this time, I had both.
If you enjoy this billionaire romance audiobook, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting new story. Your support means the world. See you in the next one.